Hi, welcome everybody. Ready for the SUSE QE Tools Workshop. On this day, we have a report by Tina about the Perl Workshop 2020. So Tina, I will lean back, relax, and enjoy my coffee, and you have the stage.
Can you see my screen?
Yep, good. It's readable. It's fine.
Okay, good. So I will do my slides in Vim. Yeah, I was at the German Perl workshop in March. It was in Leipzig, and I will show you some highlights. Just some boring facts about me. I'm addicted to Perl since 1998 and addicted to YAML since 2017. And I'm working here at SUSE since 2019, an open QA and related tools in the QE Tools team. And these are my YAML projects I'm maintaining. So the workshop, yeah, will give some quick historic background, highlights from the latest Perl release, and workshop highlights. So yeah, about Perl. So I hope you all know Perl. So who of you ever had to change Perl code because it didn't work anymore in a new version of Perl? Did you ever have to do that?
Me,
Really?
you made me do that, I think.
Can you say which feature it was that?
Well, okay, lately we had it to signet related to signature. So we were using a bit of experimental stuff. Oh.
So all of our changes and signatures don't count because they were still experimental until now. Any other things you had to change? So that's yeah, it's pretty rare, but yeah, it might have happened. Let me know. Um, but yeah, Perl is quite very backward compatible usually. I think that will change a bit in the future. So as a contrast, who of you never had to change Python code because of a backward incompatible change in Python? No one? Yeah, I
Well,
think,
I used some compatibility modules from the start, so I think that was the reason why I did.
yeah. I mean, it's a bit mean because of Python 2 and 3, of course. But even without that, I think I ran into some incompatible change at some point.
Tina, just for the sake of pedantic argument for the change of the Perl code, Perl tidy is a bit of pain in the yeah, because there it happens a lot that we have to change or we have to adapt to the new standard of Perl tidy as OS Auto Inst distri OpenSUSE shows.
Okay. Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, that's not a change in Perl itself, but yeah, it can be annoying.
Yeah, we don't need to change the code because it doesn't work anymore, right? That's what you asked.
Yeah, but it's still yeah. I hope to do that better when writing YAML tidy. So yeah, Perl is known for that, and so there is some code that from I don't know 20 years ago that is still running. I think I have a server where I have a guest book running, and it still runs and runs, and they update the server all the time, and nothing happens. But there were a few, and there were a few things that they threw out, and really for a good reason. So, do you know dollar open bracket, what it is and what it does? Anyone? Five,
No.
4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, it contains the index of the first element in an array and of the first character in a substring. So that would be a 0, right? We start to count arrays with 0 and substrings. So in the past, it was assignable. So you would be able to say opening bracket equals 23. Or typically, you set it to 1 so that you can actually index an array from 1 to 10 instead of 0 to 9. At some point, it was changed so that it only, at the beginning, it influenced the whole Perl program if some code was assigning to it. And at some point, I changed it that it only influenced the file it was in, and now it's actually a runtime error. But yeah, it looked like this. So if you had an array with 5 elements and you print element 1 to 3, then you would get B, C, and D. And if you set it to 1, then you would get A, B, and C. Yeah, it's very confusing, very crazy idea, and it's good that it doesn't work anymore now. So what has happened now if I assign to it? Assigning non-zero to dollar bracket open is no longer possible. Great. So now, I will go over the new features in the latest Perl releases, because that's really, a big part. And there were actually 2 talks about that at the workshop, and there are some interesting things in it. So first, one thing about 534, octal numbers. So octal numbers are written currently with with the 0 at the front. So 07 is an octal number now, but now you should write it with a 0 and an O, so that it's consistent with hexadecimal numbers 0 and an X. But you still can use the old form. So this is the old form, and this is the new one. Actually, this should be enough. So let's run it, and we get 493 for both of them. Oh, all fine. Now 536, that came out really just a week ago or so, or 2 weeks. Strict end warnings. So if you want clean Perl code, you should use strict end warnings in every script, and that's actually a bit much to write. But if you do use 536, then strict end warnings are now enabled by default. So if I do this and have an undef variable that I print, then I get a warning. And if I have a not declared variable, then that's a compile time error. There are even, yes, Jan?
I was always wondering how the inheritance works with this, and if you replace the use strict warning with use 5.36 in a base class, does it inherit to all the others?
No, this is only for the current scope.
So this can be even, when you use curly braces, you can define a lower scope and just use it in there, right?
yeah, it could even do this, and then it would not count for the code after the block. So yes, you still need to do this at the beginning of every script or module, but at least it's now only one line. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks.
So, but there are actually more things that this does. It enables the save feature and yeah, state, current sub. It also enables the signatures. It enables the ISA operator, and I will shortly show that later. It will enable the post bref inside QQ, so you can now post bref and array ref inside of quotes. If you ever used that, then you might know that it didn't work inside of quotes. Indirect, it doesn't work anymore, so new foo to create an object won't work anymore, but you have to do foo arrow new. So this is all enabled with that line. And another change is that signatures are not experimental anymore. So with that version, we don't need to use experimental signature, but we can just say use 536 and then they are enabled. They are not as powerful, for example, as Python signatures. So named arguments or something like that, no. But it's still helpful, and it saves a line of code for every subroutine, and it saves you from passing too much arguments or too few. And we have already been introducing them, or actually Ollie did all that work, because we knew that they would be leaving experimental status at some point. So they were experimented for a very long time, and yeah, finally it was decided, okay, now let's introduce them regularly. Okay, so that was about signatures, and now the ISA operator. So if you want to check that an object is of a certain class, then you first have to check if it is actually an object, and then you call the ISA method on that object, because it could be just a scalar variable. So that's not nice, that extra function. And so the new way uses the ISA operator, and it's yeah, you have object ISA and then the class name without quotes, and that works. That's very nice. And if the object is just a string or even undef, it doesn't warn, it will just return false. So there's also a new experimental feature, try, catch, and finally. So you might have used eval in the past, and then you use the $array variable to catch the error. This is a global variable. And if you return inside an eval block, then it will actually only return from that eval block itself. So there's no way to return from a subroutine from there. And now you can use the try feature, like that. So here's try block, and if you return from that, you actually return from the subroutine here. Yeah, and in the catch block, you have the signature, and you can give the variable name, and it's really just a lexical local variable. And there's also a finally block, and this will be executed in any case. Just after the try and finally has finished, it will be executed even though there is a return statement here. So this will be printed. This is a bit like a defer block, and that's also a new feature I will show shortly. So yeah, that's I'm looking forward to writing code with this. For loops, so you can now iterate over more than one item at a time without using for my $I and plus equals 3 or something like that. You can directly iterate over more items. And yeah, that even works for hashes. So here we have a hash with apples and oranges. And you can say for my $key and $value. So you get 2 items at a time. Or here you have an array with groups of 3 numbers, coordination. So you say for my $X, $Y, $Z, and it works. Perl becomes Pythonic, yeah. Well, it's a long way still. And then there's a new namespace built in, because there are really some functions that before have been in extra modules. And the built-in namespace is automatically loaded. But as long as it's experimental, you still have to say that you want to use it. And it has those functions. True, false is bool. I will talk about that later. We can, yeah, the blessed function, ref type, index, I will also show that, and trim, we have a trim function now. So the ref type will give you the type of the variable, and in this case it is an array. So yeah, in the future, when it's not experimental anymore, you wouldn't need that line. It's just there. And the index function will give you the indexes and the items of an array. So we have 2 items here, an apple and an orange, and the index function gives you 0 apple and 1 orange. That also can be quite useful.
I think that's actually, if I understand it correctly, I think that's something that I missed so far, because when you want to iterate over entries like these and needs the index as well, then well, you can reference the array from the index within the loop, but you're showing that one line example, which is also much cleaner.
Is a num function like Python in Perl?
Is there what?
A num function.
I don't know.
You can call like for a num something and gives you back index and item.
I'm not sure.
I know like items in Python. You mean that?
No, this is different.
No, I'm sorry, I don't know. Okay. So defer blocks, yeah, this is a bit like the finally block. It's also still experimental, and code defined in the defer block will be executed at the end of the scope. So we have a subroutine, and at the beginning we say defer, and something is printed here. Okay, well, look at that. And you can do some deinitialization or remove something from an object, yeah, disconnect database connection or something. And then you have some print statements, and then the end of a subroutine, and then another print statement, and so end of the subroutine and after the subroutine. So this can also be very nice. I will just have a quick look at the link you gave me.
No, just for reference, don't stop the presentation for this.
Enumerate. I would say that index is the same as Python's enumerate.
Okay. So this is what it looks like in Python. Yeah, it's pretty much the same. Okay, thank you. I now also know that function in Python. So, and yeah, the add underscore variable in signature subs is now experimental. So that's the warning you get, but it rather means deprecated, I would say. So in most signature subs, that variable is no longer needed. And I want to remove this because it's a performance issue, because yeah, the error is filled and actually not needed. So just not filling it and providing it would improve performance for signature subs. So it's best to either remove it, or if it's needed, then remove the signature. Don't know if I have, yeah, I have an example. So here we have a subroutine, it's called inc, and it will increase the value that it was given. So it's a call by reference, right? That's what you call it. So I have variable $x, and I call inc x, and after that it's 24 and at 23. If you do that with a signature sub and you increment $var, nothing will actually happen to that variable. So with signature subs, you cannot change the called variables. But we can try it to actually still access the underscore variable. And this is working now, still, but you currently get a warning that the use of the add variable in array element is experimental. So I think they are currently still trying to find a way to make that work. If you use it, then it will still be filled, but maybe they will also try to provide other means to access this variable. So this is why it's experimental, so that it's not sure what will happen to that, and you should simply avoid that. So just use the old way and don't use signatures. I mean, in this case, it's really, there's no signature needed, and yeah. And 536 has booleans. So these are not really booleans. If you know about Perl variables, also doesn't really have integers and strings and floats. These are all scalars, and they have some magic flags inside them. And a variable can actually have a string flag and an integer flag and stuff like this. So you usually don't want to go into the internals. Yeah, Booleans can actually be useful if you interchange data with other applications by using JSON or YAML, for example. In most cases, the Perl Booleans like one and the empty string are really enough, but yeah, sometimes you really want a Boolean and you want to check if a variable is actually a Boolean. And yeah, as I wrote a YAML module, I really look forward to this because now I do some workaround with an object that pretends to be a Boolean, and yeah. So there are two ways to create a Boolean. It's in the built-in namespace, but you can also use the exclamation mark operator like before. So not one, that is actually then false. It will result in the empty string, but with the new Boolean magic flag. But you can also use the built-in function true or false. And if you use the function isBool on both of them, you will get true. And if you print the true, you will see a 1. So you should see 3 ones here printed. And here I'm dumping the internal. Yes?
Maybe I'm thinking too fast, but why you use negate to put the false? False is 0. Why you not 0, right? And everything else than 0 is true.
Everything that is not 0 is true. Yeah, that's right. But what was the question?
But yeah, why you don't use false equals 0, for example? Because now you say false is everything that, but 1, right?
Yeah, I think the idea is that initially it wasn't a real Boolean check, but rather a check for something valid defined. And that's actually how we also often use it. We say if variable foo, and by that we mean if there's something valid behind. It doesn't mean that it's
Now that you're writing this, I feel like the $false here is still true if you evaluate it, right? Because it has a value.
So if you assign a 0 to a variable and yeah, just use it in an if, then it won't execute. And if it's 1 or 5 or anything, it will be true. That's what you mean?
Yes.
But the difference is if you use this code, then it will actually assign some kind of Boolean flag to it that has been actually there before. So there have been these Boolean flags actually since quite a while. The only difference was that it actually gets lost. So only one variable can have it, and if you do a copy, then the flag gets lost. So the flag was there, but we couldn't really work with it. But now this will be magic, and if you copy that variable, it will still have this Boolean flag. And this way we can actually ask if this is a Boolean or not. Even if we print it, it's just prints 1, but it is also a Boolean. Okay?
I think I get an idea. It's interesting. I will have to play with it.
So let's just execute this, and we see there are 3 ones printed, like I said, and then here are the internals of that variable. There are some flags here, and I'm actually not sure. So this is the integer flag, number flag, string flag, but here it says bool pl yes. So this is the magic thing that makes it a boolean. Yeah. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, and it will make my
Can you dub the false to see the difference?
yeah. So yeah, the true is contains a 1 and that flag, and the false is the empty string with the flag. So this hasn't changed to before. The 1 and the empty string were always the kind of Boolean values in Perl.
Cool. Thanks.
So yeah, I will look forward to it. Although my YAML module is still supposed to work with Perl 5.8, so I still have to keep the old code around. And yeah, you're saying I guess if you had defined false equals 0, it would simply be a number and not a Boolean, right? So yeah, here's just a number and only 2 flags and not magic. Okay. And yeah, Perl has a trim function. So here we have a string with spaces in the front and in the back, and we call the built-in trim function on it, and there are no spaces anymore around it. So what else do we have? Yeah, miscellaneous variable length look behind is mostly no longer considered experimental. Yeah, shame on me that I didn't really research why it is mostly. So yeah, I didn't have time to have a closer look anymore.
But
So, yeah.
I think I ran into that, the ones that I was trying to use a variable length look behind such expression. And then there must have been a warning that it's experimental, right?
Yeah, right. So yeah,
I wonder if in such case it would still report as experimental, or if it's like mostly okay now.
Yeah, actually there should be, it should be in the Perl delta somewhere.
Yeah, no, never mind. Going too deep.
Oh, by the way, let me just drop in some links. You will find my slides in GitLab here, and also where is it?
Do you have them as at a public link as well?
No. What?
This GitHub link looked good.
Oh no, this is also the wrong one. Now my mouse is some. Ah. Okay, so I put it on this internal URL. Okay. So, and then there was also some Outlook. So Paul Evans mainly did the talk about the new features, and he gave us an outlook what could be there in the future, built in object-oriented system, because what Perl currently has is really very Spartanic. You have you have to bless your variables yourself, and there's not much except inheritance that you get from it. You have to write all your accessors yourself. And the working title is Corinna, and I will take a short look in a minute. There might be type checking in the future, and maybe a generic in operator, because since we don't have really clearly defined integers or strings, we want to say, hey, I want to see if this variable is in this list, but please use the equals operator for numbers. So that could turn out quite nice. And there might also be some kind of new smart match. So we had that smart match that tried to figure out what we want, but that was actually removed in some Perl version. And there might be something like this where we say we want to, it's like a switch case, but we tell it to use the equals operator for it. So maybe something like this will come. And yeah, now to the workshop highlights. There were 20 people locally, and I'm actually not sure how many were there virtually. We were communicating in a matrix channel for talk questions. It was 3 days. We were in a conference hotel, and there were 34 talks. And the videos are still not uploaded, and I really was hoping that I can give you some video links, because I really can recommend to watch some of the talks. But yeah, it was supposed to be done by the CCC. They help with the recording, but they are really busy with other things, and we're now trying to upload it ourselves somewhere. So I will give you the links when they are there. Sorry. So Max did a nice talk about offline speech recognition. So I can guess that some of you, might be a bit skeptical to use something like Alexa, because they're, talking home for everything, and who knows who else will actually be listening to what you're saying. And I don't like that, and many others probably also not. And so Max was showing the Vosk speech recognition software, and he wrote a binding for Perl. Let's just take a quick look at the homepage. And you can really have a look yourself and just try out the Python examples, because it should be quite easy to get it running. So during his whole talk, he actually let it run, and it was showing what he said during the talk. It did not really understand everything, but it was quite impressive. And I looked at the website and found that the Python stuff is really easy. And there was an example script to listen to the microphone, and I adapted it. And I will show it now. So hopefully it will work with my microphone. Hello, hello. Welcome to my talk. So how this is working is unless it detects a pause in the speech, it will try to analyze what I say, and it will even change the sentence if it later detects that it doesn't really match. And when it detects a pause, then it will actually give me the final result. It returns JSON, and I can simply unpack that JSON and print it. I think it can also provide a probability with the values so that you know how sure it was with what it understood. And I also made it to exit if I say exit. So let's try it out. Exit. Yeah.
And now it's saved into file?
And now it's what?
Now it's saved into a text file or JSON?
No, but that would be really easy to implement. And the important code which I adapted is here in this loop. So we call get, and then accept waveform is actually called if it detects a whole sentence. So then this is called. And then I can call a rec result on it, decoded with JSON, and sorry. And the result text is in the text variable. I print that with the carriage return. And if the resulting text equals exit, then I say goodbye. Otherwise, it's still a partial text. And that text will be in the partial variable. So I also print this with a carriage return. And so this is really a slight difference from the original script, and it's really, really easy. So it should be really easy to get started with it, and I recommend to do it. And maybe I find the use for it in the future. So this is really cool. Any questions about that one? Okay. All right, just another thing. So it has different packages. So this is the small English package. There's also a big English package, and it would understand much more, but it also needs more memory, of course. And then there are packages for other languages. And I think it can also be trained, but I don't know how so far.
I have one question.
Yeah.
If you use you're from German, right?
Can you repeat that?
Are you from German?
Tina is native German speaker, you mean that?
Yeah. So does it work also for German and other languages?
Yeah. So we have English, Indian English, Chinese, Russian, French, German. Yeah, there are quite a lot. That's what the question was, right?
Yeah, yes, cool, yeah.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. There's Czech. Okay. Any other questions about this? So yeah, that was a cool talk. Yeah, a live demo I did. And then Thomas Klausner talked about validating Corona certificates for fun and safety. and he wrote a Perl program and ran it on his phone, and it scans vaccination certificates and validates them. And we can have a short look at his talk. Yes, Felix?
Dina, how do you run Perl code on your phone? I'm assuming, based on what he shows here, that this is an Android phone.
Yes, I actually would have to ask him, and maybe I should also rewatch the whole video to
There is
learn
a
about it.
scripting framework for Android, which supports multiple languages. So I used it like 8 years ago to run some Python scripts. It's actually working quite nicely.
Oli, do you do this on the level of an app on your phone, or is this some integration in Android Studio that you can use the other languages? Or do
Yeah,
you have a link?
it's an application which is I think it's providing a service, and that service can load script files, and then you can run script files from various languages. I will look it up.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never done that actually. I have some terminal application for my phone. I forgot how it's called, where I can run scripts, but yeah, don't know what he exactly does. But let's have Termux, yeah.
Und hier wieder Impfzertifikat von mir. So, so rum. Yay.
Can you actually hear the
Yeah.
him speaking?
Yes,
Okay.
we could hear it.
Da ist der Button, wenn ich draufklicke, wird es resettet. Nicht scannen. Hier wieder ein altes Testzertifikat. Was nicht mehr gültig ist. Ich hoffe, ihr habt großartige Soundeffekte gehört.
Okay, that was the demonstration. So yeah, also pretty cool talk. Yeah. There also was a talk from myself. I talked about news from the YAML world. And actually, a good portion of that talk was also in this Wednesday's DevOps meetup. There is a recording of that you can already see. And the recording of the workshop's talk will be online at some point. Yeah. So I gave some updates about what happened in the YAML world in the last 2 days, because there was no real workshop in between. There was some specification news, new libraries popping up, and new features in Perl YAML modules, and I introduced YAML tidy. Yeah. And yeah, René Becker talked about OWASP Top 10 2021. So OWASP is Open Web Application Security Project. It's a non-profit foundation, and they publish a list of the top security risks in web apps regularly. And he talked about the latest updates, and here's the link to the slides. You can look it through. Server-side request forgery, security logging and monitoring failures, software and data integrity failures, identifying and authentication failures, vulnerable and outdated components, security misconfiguration, insecure design, injection, cryptographic failures. So there's a lot of things to consider, and it's good to regularly remind yourself about these things. So very helpful talk. And then Max, the one with the voice recognition thing, he also did a talk about reverse engineering hardware with Perl. Maybe I can quickly. So he had this things with him actually, so we could look at this thing, loopdeck-CT. No idea what it actually does, but yeah, he was able to communicate with it in some way, and also a wireless transmitter. Yeah, and he showed some things that he used, Wireshark, and I think some code that he used. But yeah, it was a bit too technical for me, I think. But yeah, the talk is linked in the slides if you're interested in it. And yeah, Curtis talked about the object-oriented system called Corinna now. So this is quite small, I think. I'm not sure what. Okay, no. Can you see this?
Oh.
Okay. So he was showing some code. This is what it is today. And this is how it would look like in the new object-oriented system. You have class name and then the bracket, and you have field $name with some attributes. And then you don't actually call a method anymore, but you simply refer to these variables. Yeah, but it's still at work, and so it's nothing you can use today. But yeah, just wanted to show it. And yeah, the complete list of talks can be found here. And I think I'm at the end. So are there any more questions?
Can you go in the very beginning of the slide?
Can I do what?
Go to the very beginning of the slides.
Yes.
Because I try to remember where I saw it. Go, 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 go. Wait, back, go back.
To back.
No, no, no. It was in some block of code.
I think code starts later. So I think this was the first block of code.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any idea what it was about?
You call something that I didn't expect operator of the
Yeah, I think you can take a look at the slides internally and then ask Tina about the,
yes,
the
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Tina, anything you would like to add?
No, I'm
Oh.
finished. I think.
Yep, Phoenix.
Two things. First of all, Tina, thank you. This is super useful because for people who don't go to the Perl workshops, like me, you still get a scope what is going on there, and there are some awesome things that are happening. So this is really useful. I like this a lot. Second thing, this question actually goes more in the direction of Olli. Olli, when can we have this in OpenQA? I'm especially looking at two interesting features, which is the try catch and the defer.
Yes.
And I would assume it will take some time because we need to stuck with or we need to stick with Leap for stability reasons of OSD. Can you give any estimations or just indicators when can we have those nice
Right.
things?
So I would say you can start using such features right now if you qualify them accordingly, because unless I'm mistaken, Tina, please correct me, all these features are available in some form, maybe not directly from the stable version of the language, but knowing that they are now declared stable in 5.36 means that you have a clear path going forward. For example, we are already using signatures now in auth-author-inst, and just during this workshop, we merged one more change, which in the test API of auth-author-inst enforces signatures. But we are running that, of course, on older Perl versions. How does that work? Well, we explicitly say we want to use that feature with the use statements on the beginning of the file. So this works. If you want to use try catch, then there is also a way. It doesn't come directly from the language, so you cannot say use 5.36 yet, because the current version that we have in Tumbleweed is 5.34, and I would expect it takes some months until you can rely on that in Tumbleweed. And yes, it would take at least a year to have that version in the new minor version of Leap. But you can use these features if you declare them explicitly, because you know they will be part of the next stable version anyway. Okay?
So the general consensus that we can have here is that in OpenQA we can use experimental features for the version used in Leap,
Yes.
as long as there is a clear path that this will be in one of the upcoming upstream versions.
Yes, and I would say so. And actually, the more you go downstream, the more flexible you can be. So within also the history of SUSE, if you find that agreement with the other fellow people responsible for the test distribution, okay.
Okay, makes sense.
Okay, guys, I would like to thank you all. Just short outlook for the next week. We will have OpenQA test review best practices and recent related feature development. So it's a session more or less that we already had sometimes. I would be really happy to see your active contributions there. If you share your best practices, how to do test review, like OpenQA test review, I would really be happy about that. So let's have that next week. And until then, see you and goodbye.